Welcome back to City Light Podcast. This is week 3 of our podcast.
Week 3.
We're stoked to keep going. This week, it's great that we are shooting the day after the college football national championship. I was pulling for Notre Dame, and actually just 2 of the 3 of us watched the game.
I'm going to lose a lot of credit, but I didn't watch it at all.
You'd think the college athlete in the room would watch college sports.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. You were a college athlete.
Yeah, I honestly forgot about it until I was on the phone with a friend yesterday, and he was like, "Are you going to watch the game?" I was like, "Oh yeah, that's tonight."
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to watch the game.
Why didn't you want to watch it?
Number one, I wanted to watch my show instead.
What show? Are we about to put him on blast for some girly show right now?
Really?
No, it is
really
it is the
great.
lamest show of all time. But it's the show on Hulu. I forget what it's called. Special Forces, maybe. It's the one with the celebrities come and they go
National
to the
Championship Special Forces.
I wanted to watch.
I want to watch less. Than
No,
those
I wanted
types
to
of
watch
shows.
Cam Newton try to be a Navy SEAL. So it's fun.
Is that actually what happens?
Yeah,
That's kind of
he's on there.
That's kind of sick.
A bunch of celebrities. So
well, anyway, you didn't get to watch, or you watched Cam Newton be Special Forces.
yeah,
I watched Riley Leonard, Notre Dame's quarterback, first drive of this game. Dog.
dog.
Thought I was watching Josh Allen for a second.
Riley Leonard, bro. Okay, so here's the thing. If you're not a football person, which I am a football nerd, a quarterback, I mean, I hope you know that a quarterback throws the ball. This dude, first drive of Notre Dame's championship game, he passed the ball 5 times, completed 3 of those. 31 yards came from the 3 completions. He had 9 carries, 34 yards, 2 fourth down conversions rushing.
He kind of popped off.
Which you don't go for it on 4th down in
No.
the national championship, but he ran for it twice on one drive.
And for people that are listening and not watching, you know all these stats by memory, right?
No,
Yep.
if you're just listening, yeah, no, I'm
Photographic
definitely
memory
reading them
that
right
Ross
off my
has.
computer screen right now.
Brennan was a 5-star athlete, and Ross has a photographic memory. And I'm a hunter.
It's such a joke.
Yeah, he said he's a hunter.
Big
Which
hunter.
we haven't even introduced him yet.
Oh yeah, well yes. If you're watching, listening, whatever, the third person talking that you're not used to their voice or seeing them,
AI.
is Gabe, our executive pastor.
Which you can't even see him because he's wearing
camo. Yeah.
John Cena.
Hi Gabe.
Hey, guys.
Great to have you with us.
It feels very uncomfortable, both of you staring at me
Yeah.
across the room. So I feel like I'm in the principal's office, but that's probably actually more familiar territory than a podcast room. So
Oh man.
All right. Anyway, so at the end of this championship opening drive, Riley Leonard has a rushing touchdown. Now the quarterback is the person on the team that gets the most praise, gets talked about the most. Announcers were, comparing Ohio State's quarterback Will Howard and Riley Leonard pregame like crazy. So this drive to me showed a lot of humility in a sense from a quarterback that's playing in the national championship game. He's willing to kind of carry that on his shoulders, not because he wasn't calling his own number. It was clear he was, run the ball. It's like some sort of selflessness. After his touchdown, actually, it's very fitting. He points to his wristband, and the camera didn't zoom in well enough, so you had no idea. And he's jumping around, so you had no idea what it said. But somebody, one of the photographers, captured that moment in a picture. Kind of sent college football into a frenzy. I was reading articles on it halfway through the game. People had already written articles about this. Points at his wristband, and it reads Matthew 23:12, which says, "For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." And it's crazy because the reason that we do this podcast is to dive deeper into the previous sermon, and that was one of the verses we went over, talking about humility. So you talked about, Matthew 23:12. So
yeah.
go a little deeper into what it looks like to be a humble servant, as he was on the football field as a Christian.
Yeah. I didn't even know that became a big thing, or especially in the middle of a game that people were kind of looking that up. But I do think people are more interested in God right now than they have been at least in the last 10 years or
Well,
so.
Ohio State had that like before the season started, early in the season, like a revival night. Their football team led a
I
revival
remember
night.
seeing that.
So like even in sports,
Yeah.
but on a grander scale too.
Yeah. And so that's exciting to me, obviously. But yeah, on Sunday, which was a different Sunday for us because we woke up Sunday morning
Yeah.
and maybe everybody else was watching the weather, but I woke up Sunday morning to get in the shower. I was fired up to preach, fired up to be at church and get back together. And I looked out the window and I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's snow."
And
That's
this is
snow.
week 2 out of the last
3.
4 that we didn't have church, Sabbath
Right.
Sunday.
Yep.
2 out of the last 3 that was snowed out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you count Sabbath Sunday, 3 out of the last 4 we hadn't gotten to be together. But so we made an audible.
Good term for the sport.
Yeah,
the sports.
yeah, that's no pun intended. But we made an audible and went and shot the message because I just felt like we're in this series. People are digging into Philippians, and we have some things coming in the next couple months that I didn't want to kick down the road. So preached from this idea of humble hearts and working hands, looking at Philippians chapter 2, where Paul is talking to the church of Philippi about what true humility looks like. And he begins by talking about this need for them to be humble in the way they treat one another, but then likens it to the humility displayed by Jesus. And so the whole message was really around, not the whole message, 80% of the message was around humility. But I think humility is, and I stole this quote, it's not original to me, but humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. And that feels like a no-brainer in the church world of like, oh, of course we're going to be humble. But the church is no different than anything else in the world in the sense that pride can easily creep in, ambition can easily creep in, selfish ambition. And so what Paul's really just getting at is, hey, if you guys want to see or continue to see God moving in a major way in your church, you have to be humble. You have to think about other people. You can't think about yourself first and others second. But you got to, the way he phrases it as, think of others more than you think of yourself. So that was the idea we talked out of. But, I mean, there's all kinds of applications to that in our lives.
Yeah. So something that was kind of funny was that not only are we talking about, the championship the day after, but you did reference football a lot in your sermon. One of the terms that you used was low man wins, which, growing up playing football, that's something that you hear all the time, that, from a momentum standpoint, from a leverage standpoint, being on a football field, you can't just run straight at somebody completely upright and think you're going to tackle them or run over them, whatever.
I didn't know that, by the way. I always led with
Yeah,
tackle
big-
mine.
Gabe was getting run over.
Big hunter. He doesn't know anything about sports.
Yeah.
Listen,
Do you know anything about hunting?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a lie. All right.
I just noticed I'm the only one not wearing camo. You got a camo hat on. He's got a camo
Yeah,
shirt.
but you got your field day
But
hat.
I got
He's our field day leader today.
My hunter orange today. So.
Yeah, okay. So the low man wins being from a leverage standpoint in our lives, in our faith too. I think about even just prayer posture, like your physical posture in prayer.
Yeah, that's very good.
I find that when I somewhat get a little uncomfortable and like on my knees and faced on the ground, like I'm at my lowest, humbling myself before God, trying to, like enter into that space and make him who he is.
Yeah.
So
can we talk about prayer for a second?
yeah.
Talk a little bit about, because we've been in 21 days of prayer.
Yep.
You were just sharing with our team this morning
Yeah.
about kind of the way in which you've approached prayer has changed. You've seen a different angle.
Yeah.
Combine that with what you just said about your posture.
Yeah. So I've always thought that there was some weight to our posture in prayer, but I never like was consistent with, you know, getting in that posture. But it's been through 21 days that's like, okay, first of all, I almost took 21 days as a little bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, yes, this is 21 days I can make myself be consistent for
Right.
at least this. And you know, prayer is habit building at first.
Yeah.
Like you got to build that habit before you can make it every day and like a thing that you desire to do every
Yeah.
day, I think. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to start praying every day in the morning. Like, to be honest, I pray while I shower.
Yeah.
And
The Lord speaks in the shower. by
I'm
the
telling
way.
you, water. It's
Oh yes.
yeah. So yeah, like over this 21 days, that's been a great time. The water bill's probably gone up some, but like, I mean, through that prayer, it's the things that I presented to God at the beginning of this 21 days. I'm like, this is what I want to see over this time. The way that they've worked out, and also the way that He has showed me. Like they might have worked out even if I didn't pray for
Yeah.
them, but it's like I wouldn't have seen them as
Yeah.
an answer to those prayers. But yeah, being able to see and also humbling myself before him, like that feels like I'm able to communicate with him almost like in my place, like
Yeah.
on the ground on my face, like that's where I belong.
Yeah.
Well, and even to your point, though, prayer is one of those things too, where it's that reminder that, you know, because God doesn't need our prayers in order for him to still be God, right? He doesn't need us to enter into these moments and these postures in order for him. Okay, well, now I'm going to move because you were really, really on fire in this prayer. But prayer is that reminder for us, and this is what we've been learning in 21 days, is that we are in need of those moments so that we can be reminded of who God is.
Yeah.
Even if the prayer does happen or doesn't happen, that's been the reminder for me, is that even if it doesn't happen, or even if it does happen, it's like, okay, God, you're still working in my life, and I needed the reminder above all else.
Yeah. Is prayer easy for you, Gabe?
I think prayer has always been natural and easy in terms of the act of it, but I would say the challenge for me, especially in the 21 days, is moving from just the act of praying and moving towards really petitioning on behalf of either people in my life or on behalf of the certain areas of my life, and not just making it comfortable of what is comfortable to ask God in my life, but really moving out of that, because I grew up in the church, and so I know all the kind of cliche things to say and how to kind of speak this Christianese in my prayers. But it's like, okay, how do I move from that area of my life towards something that could make me uncomfortable? And I think that is where the petitioning of really like asking God for bold things can be really uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, I feel like it's really easy to make prayer a routine thing. Like I can say a prayer before I go to bed, and it's like, thank you for this day, thank you for my family, thank you for my friends. I like let me be healthy, let me be safe. Amen.
Yeah.
But like that's just the same thing as the discipline of waking up and making your bed. That's just like part of your day. It's not anything.
Yeah.
So like what you're saying is the actual act. Okay, great. You've initiated it. Now lean into him. And that's another thing. Like I never, growing up in the church, was taught to pray very bold prayers. Like it was like, you know, pray, thank God for everything and be content.
Yeah.
But I mean, to an extent, God didn't make us to be content, I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
I know
We
what
should
you're
be
trying to
content
say.
in our faith.
Yeah.
But like we got to be hungry for more, like to spread the word to more people, and you know, see his will come to fruition.
Right. You were taught to be grateful, but you weren't taught to ask heaven to move in an area of your life.
Yeah.
The reason I was wanting you to talk about it is because I think, especially, and we're just going to lean into this, by the way.
Come on.
I think for a lot of people, the more people I talk to, there's an area or spiritual discipline, whatever you want to call it, that is always kind of difficult for them. Prayer is usually one of those areas where nobody will say, I don't think prayer is valuable. And nobody will say, like, I don't want to pray more.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, if you had them raise their hand, would be like, I believe prayer is valuable and I should probably pray more than I do. I have an opinion that people don't pray because they don't enjoy prayer. It's not, they haven't discovered a way of prayer that's enjoyable. But also, I think if you look at, there's three spiritual disciplines that everyone I've talked to has either said, I'm bad at these and I'm good at this one, or vice versa. And here's what I'm trying to say. Between prayer, word, and worship, I've always found that each person is really good at one of these. They love it. It's easy. They never have to think about it. One of them is something they have to pay more attention to, but they still, they love to do it. And then there's one that is still very much a discipline, or they won't do it. And for me, that's why I asked you that question, Gabe. For me, that's always been prayer. I love to worship. I could listen to worship music and worship in my car, at home. I mean, you can ask my family. I'm always singing. I can't sing a lick.
Yeah, he's not a very good singer.
But I am always
blast,
singing. He's telling the truth. So worship is easy. I love the Bible. I love to read it. But I still have to tell myself, hey, I gotta do this today. Not because I'm checking a box, but because I know I'm not a very good human being if I don't. Prayer is the thing where I'm like, okay, I need to set this in my calendar and pray. This is what I'm praying for. This is how I'm going to pray. Because if I don't discipline myself to do it, it's not going to happen.
Okay, so discipline is, for everyone in faith, is something that is obviously, it's really important in every aspect of your life, but faith is like, I don't think people think of discipline in faith sometimes. It's like, I will discipline myself to not sin.
Yeah.
But discipline to pray, to make time in worship. I think people probably have a better ability to discipline themselves to read the word every day, but do you discipline yourself to read that with the right heart posture? I think that, going back to our football conversation, something that, being in the collegiate athlete world, you know that you're in the gym every day, especially for football. They're in the gym every day. They're disciplined, and they practice, and like there's all these things that go into when it's game day. Like all this has been put in the bank. So like we said, the phrase "low man wins" and humility is great. But, like, from a football perspective, if you put me and my body against Derrick Henry, it don't matter how low I go, dog. Like, I'm getting run over. Like, it's just gonna happen.
Nah, I believe in you.
But well, I ain't been in the weight room.
Faith
like
the size of a mustard seed.
Yeah, well, I'm the size of a mustard seed compared to Derrick Henry. So
you are a mustard seed.
So, yeah, I mean, these guys are in the gym every day. I would have to get in the weight room on a strict regiment to get to any level even close to being able to deal with that. So, yes, the low man wins, but you also have to strengthen the muscle that is the spiritual muscle.
Yeah.
And so, like you're saying, that's a discipline thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about it, like we want to work out more.
Yeah.
And
where were you yesterday
that's
morning,
right.
Ross?
Well, I didn't show up to work out yesterday morning. Well, I wasn't disciplined. So, to discipline ourselves to strengthen that muscle, no, I'm not just going to read my Bible today. I'm going to read it with the intention to grow closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm going to worship with a heart of worship, not a heart of, I'm just going to sing this cool worship song. Yeah. I'm going to pray with a, not just check it off the box, but with a, Jesus, I need you.
Yeah.
I want to know what you want for me.
Yeah. The amount of times that Paul uses athlete-like language in the New Testament. Now, if you'll look for it, you'll see it. he uses the word running a race or language around running a race
Yeah.
in multiple letters.
Yeah.
Philippians 3, we'll talk about next week. But this idea of running a race, he asked the Galatian church, he was like, you were running the race so well. Like, what stopped you? He talks, I think it's in 1 Corinthians, probably wrong, but this idea of basically I force or discipline my body into submission to the Spirit. And so this discipline is one of those things that, yes, is very much a reality in the life of a believer.
Yeah.
So there's things that I got to discipline myself to do. I believe disciplines will actually become something that gives you joy when you grow in that. But there's also areas of the spiritual journey where it's like, okay, I don't prefer this, or I'm not great at this, but God says to do it. Like worship, for example. Why do I've had people ask me this? Why do you always talk so much about or encourage people or tell people to lift your hands in church? And the reality is, the short answer is because God says to.
Yeah.
Like, he likes it. He says, right. He says it over and over and over in Scripture. Lift your hands, you holy people.
Yeah.
Shout unto the Lord. Clap your hands with, he says that stuff. So, I got to discipline myself in these areas, but there's also areas that maybe they're not disciplines yet. I just got to do them because God says to do it.
Well, and you can get better at those things too, and enjoy them more. I think of, again, I hate to keep going back to football. I sucked at football until I was a senior because I hated practice. It wasn't until senior year there was a coach that was like, he disciplined me enough that it was like, if you try to tackle running straight up, you're going to get run over, and that's not very fun.
Yeah.
So do like I'm telling you to do.
Yeah.
Get lower,
Yep.
and you'll be able to tackle that homie over there.
Yeah.
And then I started tackling people, and I was like, dude, this is fun.
Right.
So worship.
Yeah.
It's something that I love it on Sundays. But like, if God told me to do it, I'm going to start throwing it on in the truck. And like, on a daily basis now, I've found that through life. Like, there have been times that I've made it more of a discipline, and it's like more enjoyable and more spirit filled for me, and like all that kind of stuff.
If God says to do something, then it's for your good and his glory. So you will not do something that God says to do and not enjoy it at the end.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, on that same thread is, when it comes to music in general, and when it comes to things that we enjoy hearing, there is a bodily response whenever we're hearing something that we truly brings us to a level of excitement. It brings us a sense of peace, and it's hitting home for me in this season of my life, because my wife is Lulu's 24 weeks pregnant, and so there's all the million of the apps that tell you how big your baby is and what size in comparison to
She's a
watermelon.
She's a watermelon.
Right now, she's the size of a piece of corn, which doesn't even make sense in my head.
That's crazy, dude. That's
but
a little bit bigger than a mustard seed.
Yeah, but I bring it up because right now the baby is currently able to respond to specific sounds that she's hearing whenever it is a sound that's pleasing. Mm-hmm. And so Lulu was telling me recently, she was saying how she's playing these songs. And I think the specific one was Claire de Lune, that song that's very popular. And, whether it was coincidence or not, to be determined, but she played it this morning on her way to work, and she said she started to feel the baby move out of a response to the sounds that she was hearing. Yeah. And I think the same is true with worship, is that if we're in a position of, okay, God, you've asked me to do this, you've asked me to respond, even if I'm not necessarily feeling it, I'm not in the moment of the season of life that I'm truly expecting it. Mm-hmm. But I mentioned this in our team, meeting this morning, where it's like, sometimes we worship out of a response to what we're experiencing. Yeah. But sometimes we need to force ourselves into a position of worship so that our hearts can shift and respond to what's being said. So
that's good. Here's something that you also talked about, and you use this. You referenced your impatience at red lights.
Yeah.
When you're in the turn lane and you got 8 people ahead of you, and you're like, well, I know that when this light turns green, I should make it through if all
Yeah.
these people operate as human beings that are, but inevitably one of them's on their phone. You get mad and you're like, go, like, please,
Come on now.
I'm trying to go. So I think a lot of the time as Christians, we are sitting at that green light. We don't put our foot on the gas.
Yeah.
And we've been given every reason, everything we need, every piece of encouragement from Scripture that
Yep.
God has called us to go make disciples of all nations. But I mean, God's cool, but I'm just gonna like you said, sit on my hands and just not do anything.
Yeah.
It's time that like that lit me on fire. That was that made me want to go out and do as much as I can, because I mean, it's good if God's making an impact in my life. That's great. That's what it should be. But now I have it. Well, I'm withholding that from other people.
Yeah.
At the risk of somebody laughing at me if I say something what is it? What do you think people hold back for? What reason do people hold back?
Hold back from what? Just going in general?
And yeah.
I think here's the way I would phrase it. When you're really passionate about something, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Because you will not stop talking about it. You fill that in with anything. When we're passionate about something, we're passionate about it, and we talk about it, we think about it, we want to get better at it, we obsess about doing it in our minds.
Yeah.
So why people don't, quote unquote, go is, and this could just be me, and at the risk of stepping on someone's toes that are listening, I would venture to say it's because they haven't discovered a true passion for God.
Yeah.
Because if you're really passionate about Him, His kingdom, then your fear will fade away.
Yeah.
It's still going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like I'm more passionate about doing this for God than I am.
Yeah.
Looking cool.
It is better to get uncomfortable, to let your unbridled passion be seen and heard and responded to by others, if that passion is going to lead them closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
I think.
But I also think it's like everything else, where it gets easier the more you do it. Nobody's good at anything when they first start.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people, when it comes to sharing their faith, get paralyzed at the jump, because they're like, this is going to be so awkward. What are they going to say? Or they feel like they have to have, a master's degree in theology, because what if they ask these questions back and I don't know the answers, and all these different things. When, as in my experience, it's like, the first 30 times I tried to share my faith, my goodness, I cringed the whole way through.
Yeah.
This isn't theologically correct, but I was like, I'm pretty sure they're further away from God because of that conversation than they were closer. But each time I did it, I felt a little more comfortable. I felt a little more. And when I would see that somebody was responding, it encouraged me. And what I found is that many times when I pushed through the fear, this is the cool thing about the Holy Spirit. He had already gone before me and was doing something in someone's life to where I just connected the dot.
Yeah.
He had already taken care of, preparing their heart and priming the pump.
Yeah.
All I had to do was just be obedient and bring it up, and the light bulb came on for him.
I think people sometimes think Bryce Crawford is a legend. Like Bryce Crawford, you've probably seen him on social media, just evangelizing and I mean, you talk about fearless. Like, he's going up to homeless dudes that are on something, like screaming, cussing at him, and he just like goes and talks about Jesus. I think sometimes we think to that extreme. Like, if I'm going to evangelize or if I'm going to talk about Jesus, it's got to be like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't have to be like that. Like,
No.
talking about Jesus is as simple as just in your actions.
Yeah.
Wear a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, somebody asks a question, answer it to the best of your ability. If you
Yeah.
don't know, say, I don't know, but I'll figure, like,
Yeah.
I'll get you in contact with somebody who knows.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to, like you said, you don't have to have a master's degree in theology.
Right.
So,
And to your point, I think we put these incredible evangelists on a pedestal
absolutely.
and negate the simple follow Jesus, invite people to follow. That's what Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking of the mom and the dad that, yeah, maybe they're not every single day sharing the gospel with someone.
Yeah.
But them modeling to their family what it looks like to love God.
Yeah.
That's just as important. That's just as obedient.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. That, and my passion with social media at City Light is because, like, that is the way that I feel like I'm, like, everyone has a different way that they're supposed to, whether it's in your family, whether it's more of a go talk to strangers, or like whatever it might be. Mine is, my conversation I've been having, like, we have one of these. So, I mean, film yourself talking about Jesus for 60 seconds and post it on the internet where it could reach literally anyone on the planet.
Yeah.
That's, again, like, not everyone wants to do that or is called to do that.
Yeah.
And, like, that's just no problem with that.
Yeah.
So to find, where you're called and how you're called to do that.
Well, the call to go, or the light's green, using the message language, is really an invitation for us and everybody to not make God a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
But make him the center of it, so that every single thing in our lives revolves around that, receives its strength from that, and we don't compartmentalize our Christianity to Sunday morning experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the idea of humility. It's, using your analogy of just like going to the gym, I've realized that the more that I actually pursue this relationship with Jesus, this growing in knowledge and applying it, which would be wisdom, and understanding that, okay, this isn't, it's not done in a vacuum, that it takes time, that it takes months and years to really begin to unpack it all. It's less about, man, I'm becoming stronger and more of a, man, I'm actually recognizing where I'm actually weak and recognizing how weak I truly am, as opposed to when we live this false lie of thinking that, man, I'm feeling good now. Like, now I can take on the world. And it's like, no, actually, the more that I grow in my relationship with God, I realize, oh man, I'm sinful. Like, I have issues.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember when, right before I went to seminary, I was like, I cannot wait to go through this and get my degree and know everything about the Bible. And I remember finishing seminary and thinking to myself, oh my word, there is so much I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, to your point, Gabe, it's like the more you, whether it's just spend time with God, the Bible, the more you press in, the more you realize, oh my goodness, this really is the only book in the world that you can't completely exhaust.
Yeah. You asked about 21 days of prayer for me and what prayer has, like, what over this 21 days has kind of stuck out. I don't think I shared this earlier, but like you were saying, I think a misconception a lot of the time is that when you start to make these disciplines more of like a practice in your life, like with prayer and worship and what was the other thing you said?
Word.
Yeah, reading the word, that like you are going to start being like more perfect. I think that's like a
Yeah.
misconception. Over this 21 days, I have found the most like God has shown me my weaknesses, like you were saying. Like every place that like, well, if you do that, then you're probably going to be more tempted to do that, and if you do that, then you're going to be more tempted to do that. So from right here, let's just not, because that's a weakness. And like before, I wouldn't have seen that. But when you do start to make prayer more of a priority, and I think if you ask for him to show you your weaknesses, like that, that's been huge, because it's like helped me not fall into a bunch of different things that I would have fallen into probably.
Using language from Philippians 2, I really do believe the more time you spend with God, the lower you will go, because you'll realize humility is where the gold is.
Mm. Yeah.
That's it.
Low man wins.
That's it. Low man wins. Unless you're Ross Millett and you're 5'10", 150, and you're going against Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Clothesline.
You were talking about, you said, unless I get in the gym, I got to, beef up. And the whole time I'm thinking, dog, I don't care how long you're in the gym. You ain't
Derrick
going
Henry's still running me over.
You don't have a shot.
Yeah.
There, let that be your motivation right now. To just get
To look like Derrick Henry.
Yeah, to just get yoked.
That might be a little.
You're going to get
unrealistic.
yoked. I'm going to learn how to sing. And
I'm gonna go hunting.
Gabe's going to learn about hunting.
He ain't never hunted before. Look at him with that camera. Yeah. All right. Well, that was fire. I enjoyed that. Like always, if you also enjoyed it and it helped you in some way understand a concept that you didn't think about that way before, or you know somebody that this might be helpful to, this is on our YouTube, but also on all the podcast streaming platforms. So wherever you are listening or watching, give us a thumbs up, share it with somebody. It helps us out, helps us do the mission that we feel like we're called to do. So, yep. Thank y'all for tuning in, and come back next week.